This is DeliveranceMinistry.fm VideoCast number 61. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another episode of DeliveranceMinistry.fm, where we give you proven insights about the demonic realm and deliverance ministry so you can wage spiritual warfare more effectively. This is Dr. Don Ibbotson with Above and Beyond Christian Counseling. Once again, today I have a special guest, and his name is Jose Beretta. He's one of the counselors on staff here at Above and Beyond, but even more importantly for this topic, he has extensive experience, even has a ministry that's really focused on bringing Christ into public schools. So that's the thrust, that's the topic that we're going to address today. His experiences and assessments of bringing Christ into the public schools. Now, we're in Tampa here. We're in the Tampa Bay area in Florida, so his perspective is going to be from his experience there in that realm. But I believe generally they're going to be generally applicable regardless of where your children go to school. And so with that, I want to welcome Jose once again. Welcome.
Thank you, Don.
To the podcast. In case you missed it, we did one recently on his experience about deliverance ministry in the Hispanic church. And so Jose is very much bilingual. He ministers here with us. He's very helpful in getting a lot of our resources over into Spanish and ministering to our Spanish-speaking people here, and even in this country or in this area, and literally in different countries. But today, once again, the topic is vital. I mean, we all understand in a very real way that our youth, our young people, are indeed the future of the country. So I thought we should start off, Jose, with you just introducing yourself a little bit again in terms of your background, your experience in the realm of bringing Christ into public schools.
Well, thank you very much, Don. I believe the vision that was birthed in me was when I first came to the Lord Jesus Christ. My pastor was preaching one day, and this is back in the late 60s, and he said he prayed over his city by standing on top of a hill, on top of a mountain, looking over the city. I lived in Melbourne, Florida, which is flatter than a pancake. And so I went to the highest point of my high school at that time. I was in 10th grade.
Probably about 15 feet above sea level?
Above sea level. I don't know, maybe even with sea level at that time. But I looked over the cafeteria and kids coming out of the gym. And I said, Lord, this is my future. This is my vision. This is where I want to see you become real in the life of these young people. And through the influence that I had at that church, very evangelistically minded, I've carried that on in my ministry since 1968. So the Lord has given us a vision to go into the school system as a servant to those that God has called there. We don't go in to conquer the schools. We go in there to serve those that God's called.
The administrators, the teachers, is that what you mean primarily?
Yes, sir. It's like when we went to Cuba and we helped start 13 churches there with a local pastor years ago. And that's where the Lord kind of like concreted that vision and that approach using the chapter 10 of Luke, chapter 10, the process of what we do. We found out that when we lead people to the Lord and we start a church, and when we leave that country, we leave the indigenous pastor or the pastor of that country to take over the church. And so we work with that pastor because he understands the people. He lives there.
So you're trying to do that, bring that same approach into the schools, right? You're working with the leadership, the administration, those who are open. And so how hard is that to really get that kind of open door into secular schools?
Well, it's not only secular and private schools, because many people say, you only in secular schools. The same problems you have in private schools are in public schools. The same problem you have in public schools, you have in private schools, because many of the students that cannot make it in the public schools are put into a private school.
Interesting. Okay.
And so we're seeing the way that we approach that is finding Luke chapter 10. One of the principles of the steps there's a 6-step process that the Lord showed us. One of them is that you pray for the man of peace. You look for the person that God's called there. And so we dwell with them, and through them we find the needs of that school. And we look at that person actually as the pastor of that school. We look at the administrator, the head administrator.
They have to be open to this. Obviously, they have to, I guess, give you permission to be able to come in there to do these type of things. Somebody in the school has to say, "Well, this is okay or acceptable," or do you kind of get around that somehow?
We don't get around it. We come here to serve. We don't come here to conquer. It's usually through permission of the school. We go through the process of becoming a volunteer. We go through the process that the school set up to come in as a volunteer, as a servant.
But religion or Christ is in the middle of it. I mean, we probably should step back and say the name of your ministry is Educators Professional Network Incorporated. That's the corporate name, if you like.
Yes,
right? And you've been involved in this, doing this kind of work in schools for
21 years now.
About 21 years. Okay,
right.
So that's the perspective that he's going to be sharing here with us. And he's got a lot of experience, and I think, but it is intriguing because you hear there's so much antagonism in so much fear, if you like, in schools about we can't, we don't offend anybody,
right.
Bringing Christ in. So I guess at the start, I'm curious as how you're able to kind of circumvent that or get around that.
Well, it's very simple. I'm not the minister in the school. The teachers and the administrators are. There's even people that work as nurses, people that work in the custodial field. In one school, one of the leaders that is over about 40 teachers and works with 40 teachers is the head custodian. These are people that God has called to that atmosphere of education of that profession. And so their influence is demonstrated, but also is captivated, and it changes the spiritual atmosphere of the school.
How do you get... I mean, obviously, you've been at this a long time. You have a large network here in Tampa, and I know in other counties, right? Nearby counties. But I mean, I'm sure somebody listening to this sort of approach would work in other areas. It would work in other cities and states. If somebody can take this methodology forward.
Yes. Oh, yes. We introduce it to other cities. We introduce it to a city on the border, to a couple of businessmen, a doctor and his wife, and they've taken it to the next level. They're going into the businesses and doing the same kind of process of reaching business communities for the Lord. But they're into every high school and elementary school and middle school there on the border town of Nuevo Laredo.
So, I guess let's start off with, and I'm sure it's evolved over the course of 21 years, but how would you assess the current spiritual atmosphere in schools, both from the administrator, teacher, and I know these very generalized questions, I get that level, but also in the students? What are you seeing in terms of the current spiritual atmosphere?
Well, the spiritual atmosphere of a school is dependent upon those that God has called there and how obedient they're there. We're finding out there's people that are actually called into the school system, but they don't know what to do. They feel all alone. So we bring in a process of assimilating, a process of support, and then within the school system, as they learn how to pray for each other, we base all our strength on developing what we call a caring community.
Okay.
That caring community is established by prayer. We believe that the fervent prayer of the righteous man avails much. We've seen spiritual changes. We've seen people come to Christ. We've seen reconciliation in marriages. We've seen parents come back together, reconcile with their children. We've seen children repent of their attitudes. We've seen children set free, not because I'm in there, but because those that are in the school system live with these students 60 to 70 hours a week.
So your goal is to, if you like, disciple or find that man of God or woman of God or group, and that somebody can be the point person.
That's it.
And they minister in there, or they'll gather other administrators or teachers together, maybe to pray or to do things. And your goal is to train and teach them how to do spiritual warfare, if you like, or minister to students.
The interesting thing is the school system already has a protocol on how to do certain things. Okay, they just like one of our board members told us, there's many people don't have the proper information or the correct information on what they can do and cannot do. So when we come in, we just basically give them insight on things that they can do. The discipleship is basically done through their church or through their own personal growth in the Lord. Our support just comes in and just kind of like the old radio stations, where they tweak in,
Right.
You tune them in.
Tune it in, right.
We just kind of tune them in to what they feel God's doing. They're not experimenting in the ministry. They know what their heart is, their vision is. We just come in, and so when we come in and we bring in that support structure and we develop that community around them, it changes the whole the vision, and I mean, I can go on and tell stories about it, of coaches that were called in, and all of a sudden, they sit down with me and Jose, this is my vision. And next thing you know, they're running their vision. They're running a ministry. We have a soccer coach that 8-9 years ago was a trainer and had a little soccer team and whatever. He shared a vision. Other people got behind him. People start supporting him. Now he's a soccer coach at a Christian university. He's got a group of students, probably about 1,100 students every Saturday morning, children, all the way through high school, in a program that God's called him to do. Very strong, influential leadership there. 10 years ago, he was just a soccer coach in a local high school, very successful soccer coach. But God called him to do that.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm trying to sort through and see how, like, on a nuts and bolts practical level, how this kind of works out in a school. I mean, you go in there, you find somebody, you get invited in, presumably you have a network, or you meet with them periodically, and you train and teach them how to minister and reach out to their group of administrators that they can minister, and presumably in turn then, I mean, what are the limitations? You talk about the hindrances. What are the limitations that students or that teachers might have in terms of reaching the students? Because obviously that's in some sense the ultimate goal, right? We want the power of God to be working in these students' lives. Now, we haven't even talked about the spiritual condition of the students yet, but how does that? What are the limitations? Do the teachers understand, or they have a good? What are they afraid? Well, I can't do this. I can't. Can't talk about Jesus, or I mean, what do they understand the boundaries, and what do you see as the most common boundaries that administrators and teachers have in terms of ministering to students?
Well, I think that's basically, you hit it on the nail on the head there, Don. I think most of it is not knowing what liberties they have. Okay, and they get intimidated because even administrators do not know the liberties they have. We're very fortunate in Hillsborough County. We have a Christian leader over the Hillsborough County School Board, but yet he's very balanced. He understands his directives. He's very mature in the things of the Lord. But there's other counties that run fearful of saying anything or admitting anything. But there are certain regulations that are written. There's even things written by the school system that the government runs, the school administration for the government, that tells you that there are certain liberties that teachers have and students have. It's just depending on the approach that people have to what they believe in the administrative position.
Okay, can you give me an example of how that kind of sorts out, where a student or teacher can initiate certain things or cannot initiate certain things?
Well, if a student comes to him, or to a teacher, and ask for a question of what's going on or what to do, the teacher can ask and through a process find out what the student's asking you, because sometimes some students may come in to try to pull something out. They try to manipulate things.
Right.
And like if a teacher comes in, we had a situation in one school where we spoke in a club, a Christian club, and the Christian clubs are very important. And we're very fortunate in the Tampa Bay region to have very strong Christian leadership in this area. But the FCA club, the
Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
the Zinging Ministries, Legacy Ministries, there's other ministries like that. Priority One Ministries here in the Tampa Bay area are very good. They got very strongly godly leadership, and they follow the protocol. They come in as a servant to the school system, so the Lord's given them liberty. But when a student asks a person, a question regarding the things of the Lord or what their hope is, they can answer them.
So the teachers can respond if the students initiate that sort of thing. So
yeah, we had a situation in one of the local high schools where we were invited to speak. And one teacher came forward because they have to have so many teachers for so many students. And we had like 150 students in the auditorium. And somebody took a liberty to speak on the things of the Lord through Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And the teacher came and asked for prayer afterwards. And so one of the students went over there, because it's got to be student-led. One of the students prayed with the teacher. The teacher received the Lord, changed her life. Okay. She went back in her room. She was crying. And so one of the cheerleaders of the local school there came walking in and said, Mrs. So-and-so, says, what's happening to you? She goes, man, I just met Jesus. And the teenage girl goes, your face is even different.
Wow.
Well, guess what happened, Don? The young girl gives her life to the Lord, goes to lunch, comes back with the rest of her friends, and says, look, this is what, next thing you know, 5 or 6 of her friends come to the Lord. Those 5 or 6 friends go back to their classroom. Guess what happens there?
Wow. That's how it's supposed to work, right?
That's
what the Bible,
Yeah, that's the flow of the
to hear the good news.
Amen. So I wasn't even there. I got called the next day by the administrator saying, hey, what happened? And we had to figure out what happened. 6 months later, that administrator that calls me in gives his life to the Lord.
Wow. That's got to be exciting for you to see that kind of fruit, knowing that it wasn't you, it was God working through you in this whole ministry to make that sort of reach that multiplication. That's the multiplication thing.
And it all started with a teacher facilitating a Christian club, inviting other teachers. The Lord changes their heart, changes the heart of the students, and it brings an influence into the whole school.
I don't know if you have any statistics or I guess statistics are the right word, or sense of, in general, for let's consider high school students, because you do a lot of work in high schools, kind of what the spiritual atmosphere or spiritual condition might be of students generally nowadays. I mean, do you have a feel for that in terms of even church attenders or church attendance of any kind?
Well, the only statistics we have is based on, because every school is different. In one of the local high schools here, one of the Christian clubs has over 700 students. In another Christian school, one of our associate liaisons in the school, once a year, has a night of praise and worship and praise over the schools of the city. And they have close to 400 to 500 teenagers praying over the city and just worshiping the Lord, asking the Lord to come in and to infiltrate this generation. So it all depends on the school, it depends on the leadership. But in general, I go back to when we started this in 1996, when we were helping the Billy Graham Crusade come into Tampa when they did a census. And we found out that less than 3% of the population of the youth at that time was attending any kind of church. And this is what launched us to go to what we call launching into the deep. We instead of invite the fish to jump into the boat every Sunday morning, I resigned my position as an associate pastor running a youth ministry. And we launched into the deep. We went into the school system. That's where they live. The average youth pastor, when I was working as a youth pastor, I see the teenagers maybe an hour and a half a week. These teachers live with them 60 to 70 hours a week, especially if they're involved in after-school activities and stuff. So when you have that kind of influence, we see that the need in the school system is not only of a strong leadership in the school system, but there's also got to be a strong leadership in the structure of the home. Mm-hmm. And we have to have strong churches in the community to support that.
Well, and that's one of the questions that I have is, as parents, many times listening to this, and many of them probably thinking, boy, I wish there was this kind of environment working in my school situation. But if there's a parent listening at home and maybe they've got middle or junior high or students, high school students, I think we all know intuitively that teachers cannot do the job that parents need to be doing. That's just an unfair burden to put on them. And we all understand that so many of these kids are growing up in single parent home or maybe no parent home or mixed marriage. And their home life can be a mess. Right?
Yeah.
And teachers, it's a tough job. So if you're a parent, even a single parent or at home, and you're listening to this and you've got a child going into a school, let's say a public or a school environment, what suggestions can you give to parents that they might be able to do to help their child's education environment, even in the school realm?
Well, the main thing I think, Don, is the importance of understanding, because we get accused of saying it's really hard to talk about the Lord in the schools and stuff, and it is. It's from an outsider. We can't go in and start proclaiming that school belongs to Jesus, whatever, even though we can pray about it.
Sure.
Okay. It all realms in the home. So people say prayer's out of the school. Well, the reason the prayer's out of the school, though it's not, because we have hundreds of young people and teachers in the Tri-County area that we know of, and other counties in the state of Florida.
Almost guerrilla spiritual warfare, if you like, in terms of undercover. It's not
undercover. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, we were called by one administrator, well, actually the school board director a few years back over in Brevard County. He says, Jose, you're like the Trojan horse. And I said, well, I don't like that analogy, but that's kind. But the thing is that God has called those people in that school. And we're meeting students at USF, University of Tampa, they're so sincere, have a passion for Christ, and their only desire is to reach these kids for Christ. The parents, and we live in a generation where back when I used to teach in school, back in the 1970s, we were the extension of the parent's hand. We were there to support the parent's vision. Okay,
that's how I remember it as a child. I mean, exactly. It was a partnership, but things have changed.
Yeah, what has happened now as a coach, because I started coaching sports then, and I remember boys or girls programs. Man, we'd play a basketball game, and we'd have 300 or 400 people there, students and parents. Almost every parent was there. In the last 6 years, I just retired 3 years ago from coaching. But the last 6 years of coaching because after my son went to college, I went back to coaching. I would be coaching a boys program, a girls program. I look at the stand in basketball and I see 3 parents there, and I have 18 kids on the bench. And I'm like, man, where's their parents? On senior night, there was times that the parents wouldn't come to walk with their children. So there's a need of this generation has come where there is no discipline in the home. There's no prayer in the home. It's not that the prayer or God's out of the school. It's that prayer and God is not in the homes. And that's my concern. And so what we're seeing teachers do over the summer, during our summer program of Care Ministries, is we're seeing teachers going into the homes of many of these problem students and trying to reach the parents for the Lord. We're seeing them restore reconciliation. And that's where we've seen people come through here and through our counseling services. We're like, okay, now we need Christ. What do we do from here? So there is it's a process of follow-up that I think we need to do. But parents need to, number one, get involved in the schools. As a single parent, let your teachers know. Be there with your teachers. Go to open houses. Contact your teachers, especially now through email. So much easier. And you say, hey, I appreciate what you're going. What's my student going through? Teachers that are called to have a good passion for the things of the Lord are there. They're called into these schools. They're in the forefront.
And even if I was thinking as a parent, if you're a Christian parent and you're listening to this, letting your teacher know, and regardless of their beliefs, say, hey, I'm doing help, but I'm praying for you. What about just reaching out for that and just a simple thing and doing it, right? Right.
Well, actually doing it. There's people that have prayer groups. There's and meet with the teacher, love on the teachers that are involved with you, whether they're Christians or not, because some people, if you say you're praying for them, they take it like you're trying to captivate them and control them spiritually. But you say, what can I do for you? If you have a conflict with your student, approach the teacher not in an antagonistic way, but make an appeal to the teachers to bring them to the understanding of their accountability. Just like in any field, there's teachers that are very competent. They're incredibly competent. There's teachers that are learning. And so there's things that we have to do sometimes through the influence. I remember when I was teaching as a young man, I made a lot of mistakes, but thank God for parents that would come to me in a loving way and a kindly way and encourage me or question me on my motives or something that made me accountable to do what's right. And so parents have a lot of influence. But nowadays, years ago, if I acted wrong or something, my mom would come in and support the teacher. Nowadays, it seems like in many cases, even Christian leaders, Christian parents, have come into the school system demanding their rights for their youth or their children.
How did we get to that point? Because I agree with you. I have a good friend of mine who's a teacher, and that's all they did. They have these conferences, so-called parent-teacher encounters, some of them, and it's like the parent always seems to side with the child, and with no real valid reason, never any, very little acknowledgement. Oh, my child is actually in the wrong here. How do we get to that point, do you think? It depends on the home structure. A lot of these students are learning a lot of things through the media. There's TV shows out there. The other influence out there is very, very strong. The number one checked out material in the public school libraries or even the public libraries is children and teenagers involved in Wicca, witchcraft, and so there's a fascination with that.
There's a huge fascination on that with the spirit realm that we need to be aware of. The other thing too is, even though we have students coming in from college, universities, and I got one coming up next week, of young people that are involved in these games. There's virtual games, and they're having activities, and they're virtually relating not only spiritually and demonically, but also in sexual things with other people through the games.
So parents, I mean, it seems to me that's an obvious point where parents, well, what can I do? Getting involved in what your children are, and even in high school level, say, well, I can't stop my kids. I say, yes, you can. They're under your roof. You need to. You can hold them. What are they watching? What games are they playing? There's so much. Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And we've seen it. We've had other podcasts where Phyllis talked about things in the occultic, these students and kids getting involved in these video games and music. And parents sometimes feel helpless. It's like, look at, they should be they should be stepping in, right? I mean,
that's right. Yeah, no, that's right.
What their kids are watching.
Well, but you also have a generation of parents. And I don't know if it's a spiritual stronghold. I believe it's a spiritual stronghold here, Don. But when I, as a chaplain to some of the Buccaneers, when I've spoken to some of the Yankees and some of the other professional teams in the area, collegiate teams, especially with parents, especially with men, kids want to hear their parents say, hey, I'm proud of you. Okay? So many dads have told me, Don, I can't say that to my child. It's not that I'm not proud of them. I just don't feel worthy. They don't understand that their position as a father or their position as a mother is to bring an identity of culture to those children, to bless them.
So you're saying the parents don't feel like they can tell their kids
that's right.
They're proud of them because the parents don't
feel worthy. Whether because of sin, because of failure, because of they compare themselves to other parents. There's just a real need.
That's a spiritual thing. That's an identity. I mean, and this is a Christian podcast where Christians need to rise up, and you've made so much knowing who they are in Christ, their identity.
Yeah, we used to do that with our basketball team when we give the awards at the end of the year. I would have the parents come up and give the award, and I would have the parents say, son or daughter, I'm proud of you. And I would see the parents cry more than I would see the children cry. Excuse me, I get a knot in my throat when I think of this.
That's it. I mean, I'm trying to. I mean, to me, this thing, we can focus on look at the situation, this whole thing of Christ in schools, and look at the difficulties, the problems. But I know, Jose, you've had success. You're battling. You're doing the things, and so I guess to have something encouraging and some practical things that parents can start doing with their children, just something as simple but as profound as that, to be saying those sort of things and say, well, we can do that, right? We can encourage it.
Oh, yeah, we can encourage it. Let me just give you 4 basic things that I always tell parents is, number 1, learn to pray with your children. When they come home with you about a concern or something, instead of trying to be the answer, you say, Lord, I want to pray with my child now. And you pray with them and have them pray for that person that hurt them, that abused them, because there's a lot of abuse, psychological abuse, what they call it bullying in the school system. You can pray for them. My son was able to lead an administrator to the Lord one year because he had an issue bullying. He was born with one arm, and so people would pick on him. He felt insecure around it. But when he started praying for the administrator and praying for the school and start praying, there was a confidence that my son had. And so that's what your children need. They need to have a confidence in God. Okay, so you pray with them. Number 2, seek the teachers that have a vision for the Lord. As a Christian educator, as a Christian leader, whether you're a business person or just a single parent, you have a heart or a passion to see the Lord. Look for those teachers in the school. Ask your son. You can look around, look for the Christian clubs and say, go to these teachers and say, hey, I hear you're not alone. I'm here with you. Support ministries that have reputable testimonies. There's Christian clubs in the school system. I think that they need to support. Find out the local clubs that are there in your school. If there's an EPN in the community, look for the EPN liaison, what we call our liaison for our ministry. Get to them because those teachers have an influence. Like in one school, this one teacher has the influence of over 40 teachers, and that teacher meets with the head administrator of that school once a month to pray with them. Okay? There's people that have that anointing and that calling in that school that as parents, if you just get to know them, and then go into the process, number 4 is go into the process of learning how to volunteer in your school. If they have a PTA, if they have a school program, if your child is involved in sports, if your neighbor's kid is involved in sports, 1 hour a month, I know to some people it is a sacrifice. You have more than one child, But it'd be something that if you were wanting to look for practical ways, go through the proper channels of volunteering with the teachers and the clubs, and be part of the growing process. In the Bible, it's called the blessing, the implementation of the blessing. Showing your student, showing your child that you're behind them, and yet showing recognition of respect and honor to the teachers.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful way to kind of start to wrap this up. Is
Thank you.
Blessing the students and blessing the teachers. It's a tough job, and it's just encouraging, just to hear the things I know you're doing here with your ministry, EPN, in the Tampa Bay area. But I know there's students and parents and listening to this all over the place say, well, what can I do? And I suspect, like a lot of things, there's probably efforts going on in your schools and Christian, maybe you don't even know about them. Trying to bring things. There are these administrators, there are these teachers there, and they need the support, they need the blessing. And I think that's your point. And just working, discipling and imparting into them so that they can be, because the teachers, these administrators do have the primary contact.
That's the key.
It's not a matter of just going in and having an assembly and preaching. That's tough to do anymore, right? Because you can't get in there, but it needs to happen.
Right, and the students, if it's student-run, student-based, and that's where the clubs come in. I would, in finishing in the last statement I would like to share, there's the importance of belonging to a good church, a church that has a vision for your young people, a place to train your young people, a program and the young people that can assimilate them and show them. I always thought that we would reach the schools through the teenagers. And it wasn't until 1996 that the Lord gave me this vision and understanding that God's called the teachers to reach this generation. But the churches are there to help train these teachers, to help train, to support the teachers and their families. The local church is a very important part of the ministry of seeing the spiritual atmosphere changed in every school.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that absolutely. All righty. Well, interesting topic today, very wide-reaching or far-ranging in terms of influence, because there's such a multiplication, a leverage point there, that ministering to the teachers that minister to our kids is huge. There's that multiplication factor. So I want to thank Jose for coming in and sharing his insights. Once again, he's doing it. He's doing the stuff. He is out there working in schools with administrators, with teachers, just to empowering them to help bring Christ into the schools. And we know there's a huge secular humanist flow and different things in the schools, but the power of Christ is at work. And so I just be encouraged. It's there. And as a parent, and if your student listening to this is what can I be doing to be part of the solution, to be part of that movement and not be part of the problem. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you as always, your feedback on it. We'd like to get suggestions from you on other topics that we can be discussing. I encourage you to visit our websites, anbcounseling.com, anbacademy.com. You can sign up for our resource library, get our free resources. Of course, on the Academy, we have our online store where there's resources for sale in terms of deliverance ministry training, videos, ministering to children. We also have our counseling degree program. If you have an interest in learning how to become a Christian counselor, there's materials there as well. Also can ask you to prayerfully consider becoming a warrior partner. I know that Jose in his ministry has a partner page. He has people who sign up and invest in his ministry. And so we have the same thing with us. We're asking you to partner with us to help get resources out there to help reach more people in the realm of deliverance. So please look at that. Once again, we've enjoyed doing this podcast. We hope it's been a blessing to you, and we look forward to getting together with you again real soon. Thank you, and God bless you.